Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Islamic Defense Podcast. Today we're joined by Anni Cyrus and Stephen Crowder. How are you guys doing? Taqiyya. What? This is a trick question. You Muslims always do taqiyya. So are you saying that Muslims lie all the time? Yes, and they marry babies. My father tried to marry me off when I was a baby. How old were you when your father tried to marry you off? I was only 14. I was just a little baby and my father tried to force me into marriage. That's so barbaric. Can you imagine what would happen if a Christian country allowed something like this? Marrying a young girl at such age? Like at the age of 14 to 15? That's awful. Yeah, I mean no Christian country would ever allow something like this except Angola, Cameroon, Central African Republic, South Sudan, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Sao Tome and Principe, which by the way I didn't even know existed until I started doing research for this video. As it turns out it already exists, but Christianity is also the major and dominant religion. South Africa, Tanzania, Antigua and Barbuda, Bahamas, Colombia, Cuba, Haiti, Mexico, St. Vincent and Canada, Suriname, Andorra, Lithuania, Niue and Solomon Islands. But hey, who's counting? So a while ago, you guys made a video where you guys talked about Islam and Sharia law. And in that video, you guys said the following.
Well, let me ask you this, though, because if you look at Iran back in the 70s, it was much more moderate than it is today. And you see that with a lot of sort of Islamic cultures. I've always talked about this, how you just give it enough time. It seems like they never make it more than 30 years. What happened there in Iran? What was the shift? Because, you know, women out there it seemed like they were, you know, they weren't in the full burqa back then.
Well, basically what did happen is in 1979, there was an Islamic revolution. But before that, in Iran, we had a king. And his biggest mistake actually was that he allowed the practice of Sharia in the country. So it wasn't an Islamic country, but Sharia practice was allowed.
Right.
And those who practiced Sharia on 79, they actually started a revolution. They brought Khomeini over to take over the country. They basically kicked the king out. That's the thing. You give it 30 years, that's a lot.
Yeah.
2 months. 60 days from the constitution of any country becoming Islamic is enough for the country to go back 1400 years and become the, Stone Age people.
Oh yes, the poor Shah of Iran. The guy just couldn't catch a break. You know, when you hear ex-Muslims and Islamophobes or Western media in general talk about Iran in the 70s, they always make it sound like it's some kind of secular heaven, right? I mean, the Sharia law came and just ruined everything, right? Except that's not what happened. It is true that in some cases Iran was doing well, but the 70s Iran was filled with problems. So in Iran, before the revolution happened, the people who were in power was the Pahlavi dynasty. The last king of the Pahlavi dynasty, Muhammad Reza Pahlavi, and this guy was the most secular, liberal tyrant Iran had the displeasure of knowing. He was so secular and nationalistic that he changed the national calendar from an Islamic calendar to a Persian calendar. So the Islamic calendar, as we know, begins with the Prophet's journey to Mecca, to Medina. And he changed that into making a Persian calendar, which started from the coronation of Cyrus the Great. You can read about this in an article written by Mir M. Hosseini on Iranian history. This guy was so secular that he was well known as a womanizer who often spoke of women as sexual objects, who existed only to gratify him, which led to his celebrated 1973 exchange with Falisi, who's a reporter, who vehemently objected to his attitude towards women. You can read about this in the Majestic Failure, The Fall of Shah by Marvin Jones in the page 34 to 35. Now, he was also a regular visitor to nightclubs, especially in Italy, France, and the United Kingdom. He also had multiple lovers and prostitutes beside his wives.
How can I help you, handsome?
I'm looking for a whore.
We've got plenty of those, you'll be glad to hear.
Some of his more famous lovers were well-known Hollywood actors such as Jean Tierney, Yvonne Di Carlo, and Silvana Mangano. Now, besides being a pervert, he was directly supported by the CIA as well, and the Americans. Some would even call him their puppet. The CIA helped him organize a group to get rid of his opposition. The CIA helped him make his opposition completely disappear. The CIA basically supported him and his followers with nearly $100,000. With the money and influence, the Shah and his followers hired gangs with clubs, knives, and rocks. And they started controlling the streets, overturning his opposition, which was the Tudeh, and their trucks and beating up any anti-Shah activist or anyone who opposed the Shah. You can read about this in the book All the Shah's Men by Stephen Kinzer. So it's no wonder that Islamophobes often try to appeal to secularization of Iran, because the CIA was directly responsible for the Shah being in power. Anyway, so in 1963 he massacred nearly 200 people who started a protest against him, including students studying to be imams at an university at Qom. The religious students were the most active against him. Now, according to some historians, the police were throwing the Islamic students from tall buildings to their death, and you can read about this in the book The Fighting Never Stopped, a comprehensive guide to world conflicts since 1945 by Patrick Brogan. His father, Reza Pahlavi, completely banned the hijab. This rule was known as Kasf-e-Hijab, or unveiling. Muhammad Reza upholded his father's law. Now the thing is that he did relax the ruling, but discrimination against women who wore the headscarf or chador was still widespread, with public institutions actively discouraging its use. Some restaurants even banned women from wearing the hijab or from even entering the restaurant. You can read about this in the article called The Veil in Their Minds and On Our Heads by Hutfar Homa. Now his army committed a massacre on protesters on the eve of revolution, or the Islamic Revolution. On 8 September 1978, it was later known as the Black Friday. Now thousands of people gathered in Tehran's Jaleh Square for a religious demonstration. With people refusing to recognize martial law, the soldiers opened fire and killing and seriously injuring a large number of people. A lot of people died that day. Black Friday played a very important role in radicalizing the protest movement. The massacre so reduced the chance of any type of reconciliation that Black Friday is referred to as the point of no return for the revolution. You can read about this in The Persian Sphinx by the writer Abbas Milani, writer and historian. Now, according to one report by Amnesty International, the total number of political prisoners that has been captured by the Shah and his men at times throughout the year, especially in 1975, were to be anywhere from between 25,000 to 100,000. That's crazy. The country also had the highest rate of death penalties in the world. So basically, anyone who opposed the Shah were either killed, tortured, or imprisoned.
You're saying you do what every country does.
Sure.
If torture is necessary, you torture.
Not the torture in the old sense of torturing people, twisting their arms and doing this and that. But there are intelligent ways of questioning now.
Well, they talk about psychological and physical torture.
Physical, I don't believe.
I talked
Not anymore. Maybe in the old days, maybe.
I talked just today to a man whom I believe, who told about torture.
He was tortured?
Yes.
And you believe that he was tortured?
Yes.
How many years ago?
Within, I want to be very careful, not yesterday.
Ah, well, maybe. I don't know.
The word has gone out to stop it.
To stop what?
Torture.
But a long time ago, yes.
But the victims of Savat knew better.
They would tie the hands and feet, and there would be some sort of a hood that would be placed on their head, such that whenever they would scream, it would echo in their head. And then they would whip you at the bottom of the sole of your feet with the electrical cord.
And of course there are some dissidents, very small in number here, who would like to kick you out. 12 of them are in jail, and a couple of them, or 3 of them, are going to be put to death.
And 6 more will be shot, but because they are betraying their country, not because they're against me.
And they're betraying their country by?
Being Marxists and owing their allegiance to not their country.
You're a firm man, sir.
It's still needed.
And also, another thing is that they oftentimes commit this fallacy of It's not a fallacy. So in philosophy, there's this term, it's called constructing a public. So basically what they do is that they give you an idea of the public, of what they think of the public, but not what the public actually think. And this is, in philosophy, is known as constructing a public. And they oftentimes use this terminology to make their audience think that this is what happened. You know, this it was a full Islamic revolution. But the problem is, it wasn't a full Islamic revolution. Many secular and left-wing activists were also involved. Both the left-wing nationalists and the right-wing Islamists joined forces to overthrow their government. That's what happened. And you can read about this in the book The Shah by Milani Abbas. This is why the people of Iran overthrew their government. It's not because some creepy Sharia law monster lurking in the dark. It's because the CIA had established a puppet tyrant who tortured his own people and killed his opposition. Now, let's get back to the video.
I've read, and I don't know if you can quote me scripture here, if it's hadith, that Muhammad, before she was, there's no good way to say it, that he would dry hump her thighs. Your thoughts?
Let me get my straight face. Yes.
Okay, so that is true.
I can't do this, but yes. It's not just, okay, it is a hadith. It's also on the Sunnah, which is the book written off of Muhammad's daily life, that because it is allowed in Islam, and there's actually a verse on 4th surah of Quran about it, that as soon as you think a girl can handle pressure of sexuality outside of intercourse, you're allowed to do whatever is the pleasure with them, just do not have intercourse.
Now, this is a complete lie and a fabrication. I mean, if I were to make a list of top 10 most hilarious conspiracy theories, this would be number 2. Number 1 would be ex-Muslims declaring themselves to be an expert on Islam. But anyway, so there is no verse in the Quran that says it's okay to masturbate on your bride. That's a disgusting lie. Now, the hadith they're talking about does exist, but nowhere does it say that the Prophet used to dry hump the thighs of Aisha radiallahu anhu. That's a complete lie. So let's read the hadith together to see what it actually says. The hadith is narrated by Aisha radiallahu anhu, who says, "The Prophet and I used to take a bath from single pot while we were junub, which means impure. During the menses, he used to order me to put on an izar. It's a kind of a dress that is worn below the waist, and used to fondle me. While in itikaf, he used to bring his head near me, and I would wash it while I used to be in my period." This can be found in Sahih al-Bukhari, book number 6, hadith number is 298. As you can see, nowhere in the hadith does it say that the Prophet used to dry hump Aisha radiallahu anhu. Also, nowhere does it say that Aisha radiallahu anhu was 6 years old, or anything close to that. Nowhere does it mention her age. So that whole nonsense about this happening before she was 9 is complete bullshit. Also, husband and wife being playful to each other, or taking a shower together, or fondling each other is not a crime. I mean, they're legally allowed to do that. I mean, if you can have fun as a couple, then what's the point of getting married? As a matter of fact, it's a sign of great affection. So there's nothing wrong with the couples being playful with each other. If anything, this shows how much they love each other. And believe it or not, that's actually a good thing. Now, since Stephen has such an issue with this, let's take a look at what the Bible has to say in this regard. Now, while I was doing research, I just realized how juicy the Bible, or the so-called Word of God, actually is. So in Genesis 38, there's a story regarding King Judah and his sons and their wife Tamar. Now, Judah marries his first son, to Tamar. The first son, died. Then, and this is where it gets interesting, Judah tells his second son, Onan, to sleep with his brother's wife. The reason was that he needed a grandson and his older son didn't have any. So Onan, like the good boy he is, obeyed his father and slept with his brother's wife. However, after having sex with her, whenever he was about to ejaculate, he would feel guilty. Which is understandable. I mean, he is having sex with his dead brother's wife. So instead of getting her pregnant, he would ejaculate on the floor. So basically, he would masturbate after having sex with her. Now, this is the best part. So in the verse 38, chapter number 38, verse number 10 in Genesis, it says that what he did was wicked in the Lord's sight. So the Lord put him to death. So when Judah tells his son to sleep with his dead son's wife, it's fine. When Onan, Judah's son, sleeps with his sister-in-law, it's fine. But when the poor boy gets depressed because he's being forced to sleep with his sister-in-law, then all of a sudden the God of the Bible is like, nah fam, how dare you get depressed after being forced to sleep with your sister-in-law? How does this make any sense? I mean, why wouldn't he just punish Judah? I mean, so what? Sleeping with your sister-in-law is okay, getting her pregnant is okay, but masturbating is wrong? I mean, wow, you know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide whoever teaches this to their kids. Anyway, that's not all. So after Judah's son died, Judah's wife died as well. So he goes to the same mountains, and Tamar, his now widowed daughter-in-law, hears of this. After being forced to have sex with her brother-in-law, you would imagine she would have more sense, but nah. She thought it would be a good idea to go to her father-in-law wearing a veil. So she shows up, and Judah thinks that she is a prostitute. Obviously, after losing his wife, he was probably feeling a bit thirsty. So he offers to have sex with her. In exchange, he tells her he will give her a goat. And now this really is the pillars of Judeo-Christian culture. Giving goats to the person you want to have sex with. Anyway, so Tamar, after having sex with both his sons, one legally and one illegally, was clearly thirsty as well. So she agrees to have sex with her father-in-law. In exchange for that sweet, sweet goat. I mean, how can she say no to that? After that, she gets pregnant. Then people think she has become a prostitute, so they capture her and then bring her to Judah. And then she then shows them that Judah's staff, which Judah gave to her that night. And Judah then realizes and says, she is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my sons. Yes, that's why she's giving you the stick, because that's what makes her more righteous. You know, I mean, you know, that willingness to have sex with your father-in-law, that's so righteous, you know. What the f? So yes, Sela is Judah's youngest son, by the way, I forgot to mention, who was also supposed to marry or have sex with her. Then she gives birth to two sons, you know, after having incest, or not incest, but well, what do you call it after, you know, you have sex with your father-in-law? I don't even know anymore. Anyway, so then she gives birth to two sons, twins named Perez and Zerah, which is totally cool according to Judah. So this is basically what happens. She first sleeps with her husband, then she sleeps with her brother-in-law, and then she sleeps with her father-in-law. Well, this, ladies and gentlemen, is the foundation of the Judeo-Christian civilization. You know how they say that Judeo-Christian civilization started with the Renaissance or whatever? Yeah, nah, fam, that's not where it started. This is where it started. Anyway, it started with a father-in-law having sex, committing adultery with his daughter-in-law. But anyway, so apparently from this bastard line came the Davidic line. From there came Jesus. And you can read about this in the book called The Bible Unearthed by Israel Finkelstein. As you can see, the Bible, or the so-called Word of God, is full of disgusting stories like this. This almost feels like a pornography or an erotica. I mean, no wonder Christian priests often molest young boys and girls. I mean, they're reading this all day. So, really, it's not a surprise. And what pisses me off is the audacity Stephen Crowder and Anni Cyrus has. First, they lie about our beloved prophet, and then they do so while having this type of disgusting stories in their own Bible. This is nothing but hypocrisy and a contradiction. So, Stephen, first fix your own porn or erotica called the Bible, then come to us Muslims with your lies. we'd be happy to expose you. At least try to fix your fallacy of inconsistency. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
Explain to me, is there any actual Quran backing, Muhammad backing to female circumcision? Is it something that is integral to Islam?
Yes. No. It is not Islam. It's Sharia.
Okay.
Within Sharia, now, very quickly, Islam is Islam, which
Right.
is the book, Quran. Sharia is the combination of the book, Hadith, and Sunnah. So because within Hadith, there is a Hadith where a guy comes to Muhammad and say, I fear my daughter is developing her sexual life too early and she's going to bring shame to me. Muhammad allows him to disfigure her genital so she wouldn't have the urge to have a sexual life to bring shame to the family. That
Okay.
Hadith does exist. So it's not within Islam, that's a correct argument. However, it is part of Sharia, and Islam cannot exist without Sharia, so automatically it becomes part of Islam too. But there is absolutely nothing in Quran about it. No. Muhammad was the one who allowed female genital mutilation to start. No. It is not Islam. So automatically it becomes part of Islam too. But
Here she is contradicting herself. At first she says that FGM is part of Islam. Then she's saying it's not. So which one is it? Is it part of Islam or is it not? Also, she's also committing the history generalization fallacy. She's taking some school of thought, which is the Shafi and Hanbali, and try to make it seem that all Islamic school of thought are in agreement. That's not true. There is difference of opinion among scholars regarding FGM or female genital mutilation. For example, both the Hanafi and Maliki don't think FGM is obligatory or female genital mutilation is obligatory. According to the Permanent Committee of Fatwa and Research in Saudi Arabia, circumcision is optional for females. You can check this out in Fatwa volume number 5, page number 32. However, if a woman wants to have an FGM, then she has the right to do it, or she should be allowed to do it. However, no one can force her to do it. Now, according to Sheikh Tantwe, there is a consensus among scholars that male circumcision is definitely part of the religion. There is proof that grandson of Prophet Muhammad Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein, may peace be upon them, were circumcised. However, there is no evidence for female genital mutilation. You can see this in Al-Azhar magazine, issue number Jumada Al-Awal 1417. Al-Hijri. Now, most of the hadith used to justify female genital mutilation are either weak or fabricated. For example, in one hadith report, the Prophet said, circumcision is a tradition for man and honorable for woman. And this can be found in Musnad Ahmed 20,195. This narration, however, has been reported from Usma ibn Umair and Shidad ibn Aus and Abdullah ibn Abbas. However, all of them are weak. The narration of Shidad ibn Awas has been declared weak by Ibn Kathir in Jami al-Musnad 5100. So let's go to another narration that they oftentimes use to justify female genital mutilation. It says that do not cut severely. This is the Prophet saying this, allegedly. So it is better for the woman and more desirable for the husband. This can be found in Sunan Abu Dawud 5271. Now Abu Dawud himself, who narrated this tradition, said this, the narrator Muhammad ibn Hassan is unknown and this narration is weak. He graded this hadith weak as well. There is also many other different hadith about female genital mutilation which are fabricated. There is no authentic report, as far as I know, which supports the female genital mutilation. The hadith quoted by Anni Cyrus, well, I couldn't find it anywhere and I highly doubt it even exists. And even if it does exist, it's more likely to be fabricated, or it's either weak or fabricated, because there's no way a Sahih hadith exists and the scholars don't know about it, or at least I wouldn't find out about it. So it's either weak or fabricated, or she's just outright lying. However, if the female genital mutilation causes harm, causes damage or bodily harm to the body, then it is absolutely haram, because in the Quran it says, and do not throw yourself with your own hands into destruction. This can be found, the verse can be found in chapter number 2, verse number 195. Now, there is a Hasan hadith which supports this view as well, which says, do not cause harm or return harm. This can be found in Sunan Ibn Majah. The hadith number is 2340. Now, having said all of that, let's say for the sake of argument that it is obligatory, according to the scholars. Then, how come the Prophet never practiced this? I mean, how come the Prophet's wives never practiced this? What did they just forget to practice some obligatory ruling in Islam? How come the majority of Muslim populated countries doesn't practice this? You know, countries like Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh. I mean, I live in Bangladesh and I have never heard of FGM. like no joke, I've never heard of it until I was exposed to the internet. Even in Saudi Arabia, as far as I know, it's not practiced. So what the hell? Where did it come from?
With the female genital mutilation, they could argue it's allowable. It's not necessarily prescribed, right? It seems like from the Muhammad story, that's the argument I've heard. It's not a good one to me. I don't think it should be allowable regardless, but that's what they told me.
It is absolutely allowed. It is not mandatory. However,
Okay.
it is allowed. Just like the child bride.
Right.
If it wasn't allowed, my father couldn't sell me. But because it was allowed, he went ahead and did it. So the tool is given to them. Now, who chooses to use it is up to them.
You know, also, if the argument is that disfiguration is wrong, then why isn't male circumcision wrong? You know, Stephen Crowder was going all about, disfiguration it's allowable, it shouldn't be allowable, etc., etc. Or Anni Cyrus was saying that it shouldn't be allowable, etc., etc. Based on what exactly? You know, I mean, like, then why isn't, also, if that's the case, then why isn't male circumcision wrong? Like I was saying, why does America allow this? I mean, what about tattoos or body piercing? Are they not considered disfiguration? Again, fallacy of inconsistency. And the thing is that there's nothing in atheism or liberalism that says FGM is wrong. There's nothing in Christianity that says FGM is wrong. Also, if the argument is that it shouldn't even be allowed, then I could argue that in the Bible, Genesis 38, it is fully allowed to sleep with your sister-in-law and father-in-law. So again, I would advise Crowder to fix his Bible first and not be inconsistent. Hashtag fix your own Bible. With that, I'll end the video. Thanks for watching. Jazakallahu khairan. Wait, Annie, you look familiar. Why? I don't know. I mean, are you sure you're not my sister-in-law or something?